Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Historical Humans Reacts. And on today's episode, we are looking at the remains of an unknown 5,000-year-old farming society discovered in Morocco, which is, I believe, one of the earliest, technically oldest, we say earliest, oldest agricultural complexes outside of the Nile. So, you can argue all you want, but there is no denial of, of the different agricultural
As you can
society.
imagine, this recording session is brought to you by puns. Puns. Just because you can say them doesn't mean you should.
And this agricultural society that they found, it dates back to over 5,000 years old, which dates between 34 to 2900 BCE. And it really changes and shapes how we think of the African continent, especially what, Saharan Africa, roughly.
Yeah, this would be Saharan Africa because this is Morocco. So this is the west coast of the northernmost parts of Africa.
And tell me this isn't the one of the coolest archaeology names. This was led by Professor Cyprian Broodbank from the University of Cambridge.
Yeah, yeah. With the yeah, in conjunction with we got a bunch of fun names here. Professor Youssef Bokbot from Morocco's National Institute of Archaeological Science and Heritage. I apologize for any attempt at actually saying your name. And Professor Giulio Lucarini from Italy's National Research Council.
It's always the Italians in northern
And there's the
Africa.
attack. Yeah, we got the we got Cambridge, we got Italy, and we got the actual Moroccans involved. Hooray!
Beautiful.
Got everybody. Yeah.
And this really changes our understanding of this area, especially between the Mediterranean and Sahara, because this really was a crossroad of Mediterranean and African culture. And a lot of its Neolithic knowledge has been unexplored and underreported. And this is a site specifically called Oud Bet in the Maghreb region, and the discovery of Oud Bet changes this narrative because it shows that there was a highly developed agricultural society that thrived in that region. And it really goes to show that a lot of times, if there's a gap or if there's a blank in knowledge, it's not so much that there's nothing there, so much as we just don't know. Like, we don't know what we don't know, and this is one of the greatest examples because it really changes how we look at it.
And one of the things too with this particular site is it is immensely artifact rich. Like to put it in the analogy that the archaeologists use, which is a very archaeological analogy to begin with. This Neolithic site here is on par with Bronze Age Troy for the amount of pottery found.
Wow.
Specifically, the very decorated pottery.
One of the reasons why pottery is always interesting is because it shows a specialization of craft and artisanship. If you're a strictly pastoral hunter gatherer society or nomadic, you tend to not have time to make pottery or to decorate it beautifully, nor do you have time to develop those skills. So if you see highly decorated pottery in a specific style, you could tell that there were specialized artisans. And among those artifacts, they have found plant and animal remains, pottery, stone tools, and it shows that it was highly organized and well developed, and that they were doing large scale farming because they show that they were cultivating a wide array of crops from barley, wheat, peas, olives, pistachios. They raised sheep, goats, pigs, cattle. They also have large storage pits, which point to the advanced agricultural practices and the fact that you're able to store a surplus of food, which one of the big things that becomes a recurring theme in archaeology across the world, it doesn't matter where you're at or what society, is agriculture is the creation of civilization. Once
Yeah.
we see agriculture developed, you start seeing people become more sedentary. You see lifestyles change, And if you're able to grow a surplus of food, you're able to invest in other things like art and crafts and other ancillary things that become useful and have a lot of use cases. But the time investment to become a professional and to do it at a high level, you're not able to do if you're focused on food acquisition. If you're worried,
Speak Yeah,
oh,
yeah. No. Speaking of like that kind of specialization and focus, um, this article here is showing me in just one of its images alone that this is one of probably the most specialized sites I've seen. Because in there, there's a little image pretty far down, I think near the bottom of the article, showing profiles of all the different types of pottery sherds they found,
yeah.
and there are no less than four distinct styles of making grip and handles for pottery. A lot of societies will do with only one, maybe two. And here you have multiple different forms of nub grips. You've got horizontal rings, vertical rings. You even got just holes drilled through the side to string things through, as just all these different forms for effectively carrying the same pot. And that is a level of specialization and work that you don't see outside of major settlements, especially this early on in human history.
And what they go on to link, and this is where I really find it fascinating, is they look at the broader implications and context of the site, and they actually look at archaeological evidence from the Iberian Peninsula, which is Spain and Portugal now, and North Africa, and they look and are able to see that there's some level of trade and interaction because in the Iberian Peninsula, they have ivory and ostrich shells being traded, but they weren't able to tell where from or how. This definitely gives us a viewpoint because this is right smack dab in the middle and would be a pretty good middle ground for them. And it's really interesting to see how it evolves because historically, and this is one of the things we do come to we have to come to grips with and have to learn is archaeology as a whole is very Eurocentric. It's very white Eurocentric, even at that rate. And to have an understanding like this, a lot of the viewpoints is a lot of intricate cultural things develop out of Europe and disseminate from there. But in reality, we see that it's usually the opposite. Things go into Europe, they don't usually come back out, and there's a lot of jokes I could make
Yeah.
there about modern
And
day.
and the one thing that did come back out was gunpowder, and everyone regretted it.
And it's just really interesting too because this is a huge missing link piece that we found, and this article was just published earlier this year. It's so hot off the presses that they've probably only been excavating the site for a handful of years,
Yeah,
which
and
we talk about the lag in publication time a lot. But this stuff has probably only been excavated within the past 5 or 6 years and has just now gotten to the point of being synthesized and disseminated and actually published because you have to do the work, you have to compile the results, you have to analyze the data, and then when it comes to publishing it, you have to go through so many rounds of peer review and revision. And that's where science really gains its credibility. I mean, I know a lot of people nowadays like to discredit academia, but in reality, it's a very rigorous process to basically weed out any naysayers, any wrongdoers, any people trying to fabricate things.
yeah, it's all about fact checking and verification down that route. And one of the things, going back to like this specific site, that's very impressive for me is just that. How should I say this? Well, we shouldn't be as surprised that there are these sites in Morocco that do this, these major settlements for trading into the Iberian Peninsula across the Strait of Gibraltar and all that, just because this is what was happening with Mansa Musa and the Mali trading salt up north. This is where they went up into Morocco. So it's like this is the trade road. The only surprising thing about this should be is why we haven't found more, and that is lack of focus. We've not been trying. And so it's like this is an amazing megalithic site, but at the same time, it should be what we expect from Morocco as this jumping off point between sub-Saharan Africa with all its vast resources and the Europeans with all their, I don't know what they're trading in right now, probably tin for the time of this site. Lots of tin coming in from Britain.
It's honestly really impressive. Um, but I'm honestly, I think this is really fascinating and really cool, and this is honestly something that we really like to talk about because we like when history gets quote unquote rewritten, because in reality it's just we didn't know it. And I highlight this all the time is agriculture is the impetus to culture and to civilization. We don't start developing large scale civilizations and cultures until we have agriculture, and that food surplus is the biggest thing. But that's a great point for us to wrap up on. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, let us know, and we will see y'all in the next video. Peace.